We are going to be looking at when Brandon Marshall dominated the Legion of Boom in 2012, catching countless passes that kept his team on the verge of beating a competitor in the NFC that would decide massive playoff seeding against the most transcendent secondary in the last decade, and the #1 defense in the NFL in 2012, the Seattle Seahawks. This was week 13, with the NFL playoffs only a month away, two playoff teams going head to head. This was the year Brandon Marshall would finish second in receiving with 1,500 yards behind only the great Calvin Johnson. Before this game, Brandon Marshall had already had 5 100-yard receiving games this season, and in 11 games previous, he had racked up 1,057 yards and 81 receptions. He was the third most targeted receiver in the NFL, and the most targeted receiver on third down. But although facing top-tier defenses, he had not faced a shutdown corner like Richard Sherman. But Marshall was in the midst of his best season ever and his prime, so there's not many corners that could have covered him. In his best games that season, Brandon Marshall had gone for 138 yards against the Cowboys, 144 yards against the Jaguars, and 122 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Titans. Let's just start this game. The 6-5 Seahawks at the 8-3 Chicago Bears. The game started with a few Seahawk first downs, but on 1st and 10, Marshawn Lynch fumbled the ball and Chicago took over. And on a crucial third down play, Jay Cutler threw to Brandon Marshall with Richard Sherman in coverage. It was just short of the first down, but a holding penalty was called on Richard Sherman, which converted the third down. But after stuffing the run twice, it was 3rd and 11, and Cutler threw for a 20-yard completion to Brandon Marshall with Brandon Browner in coverage. But Browner punched the ball out. Brandon Marshall was barely able to jump on the ball, keeping the Bears' drive going. On the next play, Jay Cutler threw a touchdown pass to Earl Bennett. Soon after, the cameras caught Brandon Marshall being looked at by the medical staff on the sideline with an apparent knee injury. That drive, the Seahawks were forced to punt. The Bears muffed the punt, but the ruling on the field was that it was Bears football. And on 1st and 10, Cutler hit who else? Brandon Marshall with a 13-yard catch on Richard Sherman. And then a few first downs by Matt Forte. Cutler threw a 9-yard completion to Brandon Marshall in between Richard Sherman and Brandon Browner. And then again throwing another pass to Marshall for 11 yards, with Earl Thomas all over him.
Brandon Marshall dominating that first quarter with 4 catches good for 63 yards.
The Bears then tried to run on 4th and 1 and failed to convert. The Seahawks took over on downs but punted a few plays later. The Bears pinned on their own 5-yard line on 1st and 10. Marshall kept shredding the Hawks secondary with a 25-yard reception, matched one-on-one with Brandon Browner. Marshall then got another 7-yard catch, but with an incompletion from Jay Cutler, the Bears were forced to punt. The Seahawks drove all the way down the field and scored with a 5-yard touchdown run by Marshawn Lynch, making the score 7-7 with 2 minutes left in the half. Brandon Marshall caught a 5-yard pass from the Bears, but they failed to convert and punted. The Seahawks drove right down the field right before halftime and kicked a field goal. In the third quarter, the Bears did manage a touchdown, but Marshall only caught 2 passes for 15 yards. Then both teams punted twice, taking up most of the fourth quarter. The Seahawks then drove down the field, and with a 14-yard touchdown pass to Golden Tate, they took the lead by 3 points. With only 24 seconds left in the game, on the first play, the Bears got a 56-yard bomb to Brandon Marshall, which he caught over Richard Sherman and Earl Thomas. The Bears then kicked a field goal, sending the game into overtime. And although the Seahawks finished clutch, with Russell Wilson going 5 for 5 and winning in overtime with a touchdown pass to Sidney Rice, Brandon Marshall finished with 165 yards and 10 catches against the best defense in the NFL. Brandon Marshall faced the Legion of Boom again in 2016 when he had 4 receptions for 89 yards and a touchdown. He also made some very big catches against Richard Sherman in that game. And I'll catch you guys in the next upload.